So here we have our first project for StudyingWorks, and we're going to make our logo, but in the process, teach you a little bit about CAD. Now, what is CAD? CAD is computer-aided design, and what it does is turn 2D objects into 3D. So, go back to the very beginning. This first step is just adding our little StudyingWorks logo. When adding the logo, you just click Canvas or go to the drop-down menu, which is right here, and you could insert anything from your computer, from your drive. Next, we start a sketch, which is this button, Create a Sketch, or if you go down drop-down menu. Now I'll give you 3 different options. On the flat XY plane, the ZY plane, and the XZ plane. Now, there are multiple planes you can actually have. If you have an offset plane, which is when you offset the plane. So if I wanted to create one right here and offset it, you could start a sketch right about here. But since I'm not going to be using this, undo. Going back to the sketch, we can see what I have done. So the first step I did was creating the rectangles of our StudyingWorks logo. Of these, there are some intricate patterns and different utilities of how I did it. So there's many ways I could have done this. First, I could have used the line tool, which creates, like self-explanatory in the name, a line, and I could have created a rectangle like so. Or I could have used the rectangle tool, create a rectangle, and there we have it, a little rectangle. Next, I used those line tools to create the W, and then I went on to create the S. Now for the S, it has a little bit of an intricate curves to it, where if you look at any of the other tools, like maybe an arc, you might not be able to really copy this arc easily. And if I zoom in carefully, this arc that I made is nowhere near as close as S as it could have been. So instead, we use the tool called the spline tool. Now for the spline tool, they usually say to give no more than 2 to 3 little points. And honestly, you could have as many points as you want, but to get close as you can, having less points to move around is significantly easier. So these green lines right here show you what you can move, right? So I could create some very wonky patterns, but to copy an S, I'll try my best. I'm kind of eyeballing it here. And sometimes when you're moving these points, it will automatically lock on to a little grid. So you could either zoom in or just zoom out and not worry about the points and move it freely. Now, to create the other side, you can either A, make it again, or B, use the copy tool. So, if you look here, you could just click it, and using your mouse with the right click, or I guess left click, I don't know, I'm on left-handed mouse, but use move copy tool, and then you select create a copy, and you could drag your copied sketch to wherever you desire, and there you have it, a copied sketch. And then you could finish it off, of course, with the line tool. Although this is nowhere near as good as the S I originally created, this kind of looks more like a ribbon. You can use the canvases or a number of different applications, such as inserting a sketch of a design you may have made for maybe a product and other things. So Now we'll be going into extruding, or essentially building your product. So now you could use either press pull, which essentially presses and pulls as it says in the name, the face or sketch, or you could use extrude using extrude tool. You can click whatever you want and extrude it up or even down. So for this, I used it multiple times to create the different layering of the objects. And part of the fun in extruding is that you can also cut the object. So say I wanted to get rid of this, I could select cut and remove what I have already made. So as you can see by the red little box, it shows what I have cut, and obviously beyond what I've cut. So everything that's getting essentially deleted. So I'm not doing that. I'll hit cancel and hide the canvas. So to add a little bit of spice to this boring square, I could use what is called the fillet tool, which adds essentially curves to your square or whatever shape it may be. So I have selected all four corners of my square, and as you can see, I can either use this little arrow to drag it, or I could just manually input a value that I want. Let's say 5. Now 50 is significantly way too much. But since I'm editing it, I could just fix it and it'll be done. As so. Now moving on to the next part, chamfer, which is essentially similar to it except with a flatter edge cut. As you can see right around these corners. And to use this chamfer, you go to the modify, click chamfer, click an edge, and then move. Now you can just drag it, although you can't move it too far, otherwise you get an error. So for this one, I will manually move it to, let's say, 0.5, and you can see, or I guess you can't see right now, but you can see that the edge has been a little chopped off. And for this, you could also change the way it is cut. So for the chamfer, you could have it angled at a different angle, but for this, I'll just keep it at an equal distance. But since I'm not going to use it, I'm going to just cancel. Now to add a little bit of spice, I also created little holes at the back so that I can rest it on a fun surface. And there are two different ways you can make it. Either A, use a sketch and then extruding tool to make these holes, or B, you could use the hole tool. Hole as in H-O-L-E. And to use the hole, you have to click on a face or a plane of your choice, select it, and then you can drag it, or you can use reference points in your choice to manually change where this point or hole will be. So now I'll be inputting these values to make the center as such. With that, I can now change how I want the hole to be. Now there's many different hole types, tap types, and drill point types. Whether you want it to be a flat or a sharp angled point, or if you want to have a counterbore, which allows you to employ a screw or a nail bed into whatever you're building. Like if you were to hang something, you could essentially create that counterbore to facilitate that little hole of the screw or nail head. And with the tapered hole, you could have it essentially as an angled hole, where you could also embed a screw like hole. And since I don't need it, I'll hit cancel. And now you may be wondering, why did it change appearances or color midway throughout this rotation? And that is because I have changed the appearance. To change the appearance, you go to the modify and select appearance right here. And you can change the various faces of this by clicking faces and then selecting one of these materials from the Fusion 360 library. And you can download whatever you want, but for now I will select paint and choose, say, glossy, and change one of the colors of these faces to blue. And as you can see, the face is now blue, and I can even change the material to something like wood. And now I can make this piece look like mahogany wood, like so. That is all for our little tutorial, and this is part 1 of the CAD tutorials. See you next time. Thank you for watching.